Imagine a tiny island, smaller than New York City, with no natural resources, no vast landscapes, and no substantial population. Yet, this island, against all odds, has grown into one of the wealthiest countries on the planet. How did Singapore, once a sleepy colonial outpost, transform into a global financial powerhouse with a GDP per capita that surpasses the likes of the US, UK, and France? The story of Singapore's rise to wealth is nothing short of remarkable, a tale woven with strategic brilliance, visionary leadership, and an unyielding commitment to progress. When Singapore gained independence in 1965, it faced what seemed like insurmountable challenges. The country was riddled with unemployment, poverty, and a lack of resources. But instead of succumbing to these challenges, Singapore's first Prime Minister, Kuan and his team of leaders saw an opportunity to redefine the nation's destiny. They envisioned a future where Singapore would not just survive, but thrive, becoming a beacon of economic success in the heart of Asia. So, how did Singapore manage to achieve what many thought impossible? And more importantly, what can other nations learn from its journey? Stick with us as we explore the key moments, decisions, and strategies that turned this island nation into a global economic giant. But before we dive in, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single part of this fascinating story. Strategic location and infrastructure development. Let's start with Singapore's most obvious advantage, its strategic location. Imagine the bustling Strait of Malacca, one of the busiest maritime passages in the world. For centuries, this narrow stretch of water has been a gateway between the East and the West, a vital artery for global trade. Now, picture Singapore, a tiny island nestled right at this crossroads with ships constantly passing by. But here's the thing, being in the right place at the right time is only part of the equation. The real story begins with how Singapore transformed this geographical luck into a cornerstone of its wealth. Back in the 1960s, Singapore was just another port in a region filled with ports. Yet, the visionaries of this young nation saw beyond the immediate. They knew that to leverage their location, they needed more than just a busy harbor. They needed world-class infrastructure. Over the next few decades, Singapore invested heavily in developing its port facilities, making them some of the most efficient and technologically advanced in the world. Today, the Port of Singapore is not just a major hub for container shipping, it's a symbol of the nation's ability to turn potential into prosperity. But infrastructure isn't just about ports and airports. Singapore's leaders understood that a successful economy requires a robust foundation, one that includes reliable utilities, efficient public transportation, and cutting-edge communication networks. By the 1980s, Singapore had laid down the infrastructure that would support its rapid economic growth, turning the island into a magnet for global business. And here's where it gets even more interesting. While other nations with similar strategic locations struggled to capitalize on their geographic advantages, Singapore thrived. Why? Because the island didn't just rely on its location, it maximized it. The leadership's focus on efficiency and innovation turned Singapore into a place where global trade, finance, and business converged. But what really set the stage for Singapore's economic miracle wasn't just its infrastructure, it was the strategic decisions made by its leaders. And that's where we're headed next, into the mind of one of the most influential leaders in modern history, Lee Kuan Yew.
Visionary leadership and government policies.
Imagine this, it's 1965, and Singapore has just become an independent nation. The future is uncertain, the challenges are immense, and the odds seem stacked against this tiny island state. But standing at the helm is a man with a vision that would redefine what's possible for a nation without natural resources. Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore's first prime minister, wasn't just a leader, he was a strategist, a visionary who saw potential where others saw problems. Lee's approach was anything but conventional. Instead of relying on the traditional economic models of the time, he crafted a unique path for Singapore, one that balanced state control with capitalist principles. He recognized that Singapore couldn't depend on agriculture or mining like other nations. It had to innovate. Lee's government focused on creating a pro-business environment that would attract foreign investment. This meant low taxes, minimal tariffs, and a corruption-free government. a rare combination in a world where bureaucracy often stifled growth. One of the most significant moves made by Lee was the Land Acquisition Act, which allowed the government to take over land for public purposes, such as housing and industrial development. This controversial policy wasn't popular, but it was necessary. It enabled Singapore to build the infrastructure needed for its growing economy and provided affordable housing for its people, a critical factor in maintaining social stability during a time of rapid change. But Lee's vision didn't stop at policy. He understood that for Singapore to thrive, it needed to be seen as a place where business could flourish. That's why his government took bold steps to liberalize the financial sector, attracting multinational corporations and turning Singapore into a global financial hub. The results were staggering. Within a few decades, Singapore went from being a struggling port city to a thriving center of commerce and finance. As we've seen, leadership plays a crucial role in shaping a nation's destiny. But it wasn't just Lee Kuan Yew who steered Singapore towards success. His successors continued to build on his legacy, each contributing to the economic framework that has made Singapore one of the richest countries in the world. However, leadership alone doesn't create wealth. What truly fuels an economy is its ability to adapt and innovate. And that's where Singapore's strategy of economic diversification comes into play. Economic diversification. Picture this. It's the 1970s, and Singapore is still heavily reliant on manufacturing. The nation has made significant strides, but there's a realization that this alone won't sustain long-term growth.
So, what do you do when you're a small island nation with limited resources? You diversify, and you do it strategically.
Singapore's leaders knew that relying on a single industry was a recipe for disaster. To secure the country's future, they began a deliberate shift towards high-value sectors. By the 1980s, Singapore had started transitioning from labor-intensive manufacturing to industries like electronics, biotechnology, and eventually, financial services. This wasn't just about moving up the value chain. It was about creating a resilient economy that could weather global changes. One of the most remarkable aspects of Singapore's economic transformation was its ability to adapt quickly to global trends. When the world started moving towards a knowledge-based economy, Singapore didn't hesitate. The government invested in research and development, provided incentives for innovation, and built a robust ecosystem that encouraged entrepreneurship. The result? Singapore became a leader in fields like semiconductors, precision engineering, and biomedical sciences. But diversification wasn't just about high-tech industries. Singapore also focused on becoming a global financial hub, attracting banks, hedge funds, and multinational corporations. This move was pivotal in increasing the country's wealth and solidifying its position on the global economic stage. As Singapore diversified its economy, it also laid the groundwork for the next generation of industries. Today, the country is at the forefront of technology and innovation, constantly evolving to meet the demands of a rapidly changing world. But behind every thriving economy is a well-educated workforce, and Singapore's commitment to education is perhaps one of the most critical factors in its success. Let's explore how this small nation turned its people into its greatest asset: education and human capital development. Imagine a classroom in Singapore, filled with students who are not just learning to pass exams, but are being equipped with the skills to lead in tomorrow's world. From the earliest days of independence, Singapore's leaders understood that the key to economic success lay not in natural resources, but in its people. And so, they invested heavily in education, creating a system that would become one of the best in the world. Singapore's education system is renowned for its rigor and its focus on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But what makes it truly remarkable is how it's designed to cultivate not just academic excellence, but also creativity, critical thinking, and resilience. The government's approach was simple. To build a future-ready workforce, you need to start from the ground up. In the 1970s and 1980s, as Singapore was transitioning from a manufacturing-based economy, the education system was restructured to meet the needs of a more advanced, diversified economy. Technical education was emphasized, with polytechnics and universities offering courses that aligned with the nation's economic goals. This focus on practical skills ensured that Singapore's workforce was not just educated, but also highly skilled and adaptable. But education in Singapore isn't just about producing workers, it's about fostering innovation and entrepreneurship. The government has implemented numerous initiatives to encourage young Singaporeans to think creatively and take risks. This has led to a vibrant startup ecosystem, with Singapore now being one of the most attractive places in the world for tech entrepreneurs. The investment in education has paid off. Singapore consistently ranks at the top of global education rankings, and its students are among the best prepared in the world to tackle the challenges of the future. But the true measure of success is how this education translates into economic growth. Singapore's highly skilled workforce has been a driving force behind its economic resilience and innovation. Yet even the best education system needs a stable and supportive environment to thrive. And that brings us to another critical aspect of Singapore's success: its social cohesion and governance. Social cohesion and governance. Think about this. How does a small, multicultural nation maintain harmony while achieving rapid economic growth? Singapore's answer lies in its unique approach to governance and its emphasis on social cohesion. From the very beginning, the government recognized that in a multiracial society like Singapore, unity would be key to the nation's stability and success. When Singapore became independent, it was a society fraught with potential divisions: ethnic, religious, and cultural. But rather than allowing these differences to tear the nation apart, Singapore's leaders turned them into a source of strength. Policies were implemented to promote racial harmony and ensure that all communities felt represented and respected. This was no small feat, but it was essential in creating a stable society where people could focus on building a better future together. One of the ways Singapore achieved this was through its public housing policy. The government didn't just build homes, it built communities. Public housing was designed to be racially integrated, ensuring that people from different backgrounds lived together and developed mutual understanding. This approach helped to foster a sense of belonging and national identity that transcended individual differences. But social cohesion isn't just about where you live, it's also about trust. The Singaporean government has worked hard to build and maintain trust with its citizens. Through honest and transparent governance, it has ensured that the people have confidence in their leaders. This trust has allowed the government to implement tough policies, such as the aforementioned land acquisition and the strict enforcement of laws, without significant public opposition. However, maintaining social cohesion is an ongoing challenge. As Singapore continues to grow and evolve, it must navigate new social dynamics and address the concerns of an increasingly diverse and vocal population. But if there's one thing that Singapore has demonstrated time and again, it's that resilience and adaptability are in its DNA. But there's one final piece of the puzzle that has truly set Singapore apart: its rise as a global financial powerhouse. Financial sector development. Imagine the skyline of Singapore dotted with towering skyscrapers, home to some of the biggest banks and financial institutions in the world. This wasn't always the case. In fact, back in the 1960s, Singapore's financial sector was modest at best. But with the same foresight and strategic thinking that characterized its other initiatives, Singapore's leaders saw an opportunity to transform the island into a global financial hub. In the early 1980s, Singapore began to liberalize its financial services sector. The government adopted a lighter touch regulation approach, making it easier for foreign banks and financial institutions to set up shop. This, combined with Singapore's reputation for stability and its strategic location, attracted a wave of foreign investment. The result? Singapore quickly became one of the most important financial centers in Asia, second only to Tokyo. But it wasn't just about attracting foreign banks. Singapore also focused on building its own financial ecosystem. The government introduced incentives to promote the growth of domestic financial institutions and nurtured a culture of innovation within the sector. This led to the development of cutting-edge financial technologies and services that further solidified Singapore's position as a global financial leader. Today, Singapore is not just a hub for banking, it's also a major player in asset management, insurance, and fintech. The city-state is home to thousands of multinational companies, and its financial services sector contributes significantly to the national economy. But what's truly impressive is how Singapore has managed to maintain its competitive edge in a rapidly changing global financial landscape. As we've explored throughout this script, Singapore's success is the result of a combination of strategic location, visionary leadership, economic diversification, investment in education, social cohesion, and financial innovation. Each of these elements has played a crucial role in transforming Singapore from a small island nation into one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And while the future holds its own challenges, one thing is clear: Singapore's story is far from over. So, what can we learn from Singapore's incredible journey? It's a story of resilience, strategic thinking, and the power of a nation to shape its destiny against all odds. Singapore's success didn't happen overnight. It was the result of decades of planning, hard work, and a commitment to progress. And as we look to the future, there's no doubt that Singapore will continue to be a model for other nations striving to achieve their own economic miracles. Before we wrap up, remember to like, share, and subscribe if you found this exploration of Singapore's rise to wealth insightful. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming content. Thanks for watching, and let us know in the comments what you think other countries can learn from Singapore's success.